Never miss an episode of the Final Furlong podcast. Subscribe now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And now, here's your host, Emmet Kennedy.
Welcome to our day one preview of Royal Ascot 2025. We have assembled a top team. We've got George Gorman, Sky Sports Racing's Tim Carroll, Aidan O'Hara, and Peter Michael here to take you through every race from day one of Royal Ascot. And we will begin with the opening race, which is an absolute blockbuster. It's the Queen Anne Stakes. The betting is headed by Rosallion, who's expected by the bookmakers at least to be the one to really step forward from the Lockinge as 4 horses rematch. The winner of that race, lead artist, his trainer sounds very bullish, but the bookmakers don't sound that way. At 9-2, along with Dancing Gemini, who's second favourite. The Notable Speech, who was fourth that day, bombed out at Ascot a year ago. He's 5-1. Sardinian Warrior, who won the trial for this race before finishing second in Group 1 company in Barry Longchamp to Saucy last time out, who was winning his second Group 1 of the season. That all looks like good form. 13-2, and the well-touted Lake Forest, Diego Velasquez, and a number of others make up the lineup. George Gorman, who are you going to side with in the Queen Anne?
Yeah, it's still Rosallion for me. I mentioned it on here the other day. The only thing that would have worried me would have been if Diego Velasquez hadn't run and Ryan had managed to get on Dancing Gemini. I wouldn't fancy coming up against Ryan with the benefit of the lessons that he learned last time in the Lockinge. But look, Rosallion's a big framed horse, and I think it's been brought along more slowly than some of these. He's had 8 career starts spread out over 2 years compared to Dancing Gemini, who's had 13 in the same period, including 3 this season already. Notable Speech has only had 1 more run than Rosallion, but the first 8 were packed into 10 months. So like those two are probably more battle-hardened in that way last time they met, which is quite frightening given Rosallion beat him anyway. The 3 career defeats of Rosallion are excusable. 1 was his only run on soft ground. The other 2 were on seasonal debut in Group 1. I just think with the benefit of a run, I think he'll definitely get past the first 2 from the Lockinge. Probably needs to find more improvement to beat Notable Speech, but as I've just said, I think he's a big framed horse who's open to more improvement than Notable Speech. If it wasn't Diego Velasquez's first run in quite so long, it would be a concern. Like, he's 4 from 4 on good ground and career best RPRs the last twice of 118. The sort of the each way one, but it's not a big enough price for me at the minute. Be the fresh form line of Sardinian Warrior. He's one of the least experienced in the field. Only 6 career starts, only 2 on turf, and he's had 2 defeats in that time. 1 on racecourse debut and 1 last time out to the Art favourite. He's won here already in the Queen Anne trial where he beat Docklands. And he's only beaten 2 lengths in the pre-dis span. Ran to an RPR of 119 on both of those starts, which are his only turf starts. So further progress has to be expected from him. If you wanted a real wise guys one, I'm not sure. Just at the price at the minute, if Sardinian Warrior doesn't hit more appealing each way price, I might have a small place only on Docklands. Last year's second, and this does look, but his reappearance behind Sardinian Warrior was rated equal on RPRs to his second here last year. He slightly underperformed at Epsom, but it was his first visit to the track, and he underperformed by £9 on RPRs on his second start last season as well. So it could be a case he runs well above himself on his first run of the season, then drops off a little for the second one. But yeah, it's going to be Rosallion for the win for me, and if Sardinian Warrior doesn't drift, I might have a small place only on Docklands. If I can get 8-9 to 1 Sardinian Warrior, I'll back him each way.
25 Queen Anne winners since 1980, ran in the Lockinge. 16 of the last 29 was a beaten horse in the Lockinge. So what do you think, Tim Carroll? Is lead artist going to confirm that form? The stiff mile at Ascot should suit him, but Rosallion shaped well. The Hannon team sound confident. Can he win it back-to-back Royal Ascots?
Yeah, look, possibly, but I'm looking away from the top of the market. My second best result of the week runs here. I backed Lake Forest at 33-1 to win this race after he finished, I think it was 4th on his return in France. I actually quite like him. I think he'll run a heck of a race at his first go over the mile. If you have a look at his form last year, he went around in the Commonwealth Cup, but I'm not going to say he was luckless because he was beaten just over 2. He ran second in that, and it just did not work out for him. He was slow out of the stalls, and I think it was Ryan on Military cleaned him up not long after that as well, but he still got up the hill really strongly to finish second, and with a clear round, I think he might have made it interesting. Now, they took him down to Australia, and you guys can joke about the form in Australia all you like. He went around in the Golden Eagle. He won that. It's a race now worth, I think, around 10 or 12 million. So they do draw some pretty handy types for it. I think since that race in November, keeping in mind in Australia they do tend to send them out quite often, but there's been 7 subsequent Group 1 winners come out of that race. And let's not forget Lazard, the French horse, who's currently the favourite for the Queen Elizabeth on the Saturday, ran second in that. I think he's screaming out for a mile. And William Haggis, look, everyone's got their favourite trainers, but I think William Haggis is one of the most patient trainers anywhere in the world. He just brings them along slowly. I think this horse is going to run a heck of a race, and he's currently at 14-1.
He's got a Royal Ascot form and a Royal Ascot pedigree as well, being by no name ever, and he may very well improve for stepping up to a mile. 14-1 is currently available, although he is being cut to 12s by a number of firms, and the second biggest winner of the week for Tim Carroll, which means who's the biggest winner of the week? We'll find out a little bit later on. Aidan O'Hara, who do you like in the Queen Anne?
Well, when I looked at the what's it called, the Lockinge, the lead artist, I comfortably thought he was the best horse in it. I like what he did there. He came back, battled back. Looks like Ascot would suit him. But all that said, I think we need a different farm line here. I'm not sure this is as good as last year's milers. I don't think it is. And the one I'm going to go with, and I think he'll be a bigger and bigger price, is, and we're going to try and pronounce this, is it Kudwa? Kudwa. Because, first of all, he has a couple of nice runs. He's unexposed. He hasn't many runs, So last year, I thought he did well against, when you consider the field, so he's head-to-head with Inspire behind Sharon in the Jack Lamarwa. Then it's the Ascot run last year, though, on heavy ground. I mean, Sharon, Factor Cheval and Tamfana were first, second and third, but Quidwag didn't get a great run in and looked to me like he travelled well, though. It looked to me like he didn't stay in that heavy ground. I just feel he's unexposed and he's won in France lately. I'm not sure that any of the farm at the top of the market, I think they're all relatively similar and behind last year's milers. I prefer, and I would like Diego Velasquez if he had a run, but he hasn't, and it took him a while last year. So the one that I would prefer Kudwa than say Docklands. I mean, Docklands is kind of set what he is. Kudwa, is it Kudwa? Does anybody?
I think it's Kudwa.
Whatever it is, anyway, right? And whatever it is. I give a sneaking suspicion that there could easily be a bit of a shock here. And when I look at his farm, it's not that much of a shock.
Well, we know he likes the straight mile at Ascot as well because he beat Docklands.
He does. He's had a couple of wins here. But it's conceivable he's still improving. And just that race against that soft ground QE2 last October is heavy ground. Well, but just didn't. I mean, he wasn't as good as Sharon. But if Factor Cheval or Tamfana are in this, they'd also be way shorter than the likes of him. And it's just, I think he didn't stay. So I think he could be suited to this. And I don't think there's much between. This is a very good race, but I think there's nothing between most of them.
Yeah, I tend to agree with
you. The Lockinge ones. I thought Lead Artist actually won that relatively well in the end. Something I look for, he battled back and looked much the best in it, I think.
Yeah, the only horse I can comfortably rule out of this race is Peter Michael, is Cairo. And I was actually looking at Kodwa because Adam Mills was talking to me about him the other day, and he was really excited about the prospects of this horse, really liked what he did in France the other day. Now Aidan O'Hara comes along completely independently and says the exact same thing, basically. But this is a very, very open race. I really like Diego Velasquez. The problem is he hasn't had a prep run, and Aidan O'Brien made it pretty clear in the stable tour we did with him, which is available now on podcast audio. You can listen to it on the Final Furlong Podcast, on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, all good podcast apps, and some rubbish ones as well. That they really, it's unfortunate, is what he said, that they haven't had the prep race. But he's got an Ascot pedigree. He's a brother to 2 Ascot winners in Point Lonsdale and Broome, who both won at the Royal Meeting for him. He's completely unexposed as a miler, and I think he's very, very interesting from at least the perspective of the exotic bets. Lake Forest is blindingly obvious the more you look at him, in the sense that he should improve going up in trip. It's a nice comeback run. He was eye-catching that day. And then you've got Sardinian Warrior, who beat Docklands, similar to Kudwa. He loves this track. That was his first ever run on turf. So the fact that he was able to beat Docklands first time out on grass in the way that he did bodes very, very well. He's gone to France. He's finished second to Sassi, who was race fit in a Group 1. He was winning his second Group 1 of the season. The only thing that's slightly negative for me is John Gosden didn't sound overly enthusiastic about him and kept pointing in the direction of lead artist. But this is a really, really interesting race, Peter.
It is, yeah. And the first thing I'd say as well is I don't think there's going to be much between these at the line. I think you could possibly have 2 lengths between 4 or 5 horses, maybe even more. Obviously, we know there's interlocking form there. And there's even form with, you're talking about Sardinian Warrior and Docklands. True line of check and challenge. They actually have the beating of the Lockinge form. Now, I know it was a different track, but it was the same ground and same distance. Check and challenge finished third in the third behind Sardinian Warrior and Docklands. He was beaten, I think, 4 3/4 of a length by Sardinian Warrior. And then he went on after that and was beaten 4 1/4 length by lead artist. And obviously there was others in it. So on that line of form, Sardinian Warrior and Docklands have as good a chance as any in it. And if you could argue even better. When we did this on Thursday, I think I put up lead artist as my most likely winner. And I agree with Aidan. I think he'll come out on top of those 4 from that race. Rosallion, I can't look if he comes. I know the vibes are bullish about him, but he's coming back from a respiratory infection, I think it was.
Yeah.
You know, we just don't know how much that takes out of horses. Sometimes they can get over it, no problem. Sometimes it can have an effect that's hard to get over. He's got a very solid chance, but I won't be backing him at 3-1. Dancing Gemini, I don't see any reason why he should finish out a lead artist in the stiffer mile. He had every chance last time to go by. Well, he did go by, I think, and lead artist, as Aidan said, you know, he hit the line well, and this stiffer mile will definitely suit him. You can never rule out Aidan O'Brien as well, but notable speech. Look, I'm a fan of the horse. I like him, but has he peaked? That's the question. He could have peaked. Changed my tone on this. I'd gone with lead artist the last time, but I'm going to change it. I'm going to go for Sardinian Warrior. And I also think Docklands is a very big price. I mean, his form figures at Ascot are 1-1-3-2-2-2. And, I mean, he's not going to be far away. There's no way he's going to be far away, given we know the form ties in. And his price is just way too big. But as you said, Sardinian Warrior's only had 2 runs on the turf, and what he's achieved in those 2 runs is, you know, excellent. He won the first one and he was second in France behind a very talented horse. So I'd say he's probably the likeliest winner out of the 2 of them. But, you know, I'd say Docklands is the value, but I'm going to change my tune and go for Sardinian Warrior as the winner and Docklands to come second.
I'm with you for the win bet anyway. I'm with you on Sardinian Warrior. I think the fact that he can stay that little bit further. They had him entered for the Derby, the Dante and the Derby last season. He ended up missing the vast majority of the campaign, came back in the all-weather at Southwell, won very impressively, then beat the 95 rated Silver Sword like he was nothing. And then he's proven that form is really top class with his dismissal of Docklands, then pulling clear.
I think as well, Emmet, is it like, who knows? We don't know yet. It's too early, but maybe the ground was a bit soft for him in long shot. I saw him changing his legs once or twice. Whether, you know, it was the ground or not, I don't know, but I think he'll be around anyway.
Okay. I'll get a TriCast from everybody. So I'll do exotic 4 TriCast. Sardinian Warrior, Diego Velasquez, Rosallion, Docklands. That's my 4. George Gorman?
Oh, the first 4. The Rosallion, lead artist, Sardinian Warrior, Docklands.
Tim?
Oh, I'd go with Lake Forest on top. I'd put lead artist in for second, Dancing Gemini and Sardinian Warrior.
Aidan?
Lead artist, Dancing Gemini, Quadwa, and Docklands probably.
And Peter?
Yeah, just to say, with Tim mentioning Lake Forest, I mentioned them on Thursday when we did it, and I'm looking forward to seeing him over a mile. I mean, that could bring about the improvement necessary to win this. I'm going to go with Sardinian Warrior, Docklands, lead artist, and then Lake Forest.
It's a cracking race. I can't wait for the Queen Anne. You'll hear it live on TalkSport 2 and see it live on Sky Sports Racing. If you haven't liked this video already on YouTube, please do so. It's free, and it's free to hit the like button as well, for that matter. It's a massive help to us with the algorithm, so smash the like button now, particularly if you're liking the content, and do let us know in the comment section who you're siding with in the opening race the Queen Anne at Royal Ascot. It's going to be an explosive renewal. We're looking forward to it. We'll take you to the Coventry Stakes, second race on day one. Over the 6 furlongs, Postmodern remains the favourite at 7-2. Generally, James Doyle is going to be on board. We've known that for a while. Military Code, Wootton Bassett, but bred by Godolphin as part of their Coolmore deal. William Buick will ride him 4-1. Ryan Moore confirmed by Aidan O'Brien on Friday on the Final Furlong Podcast Stable Tour with the Ballydoyle Maestro that Ryan was going to ride Gestad. He was very impressive on his debut, beating the odds-on filly True Love, who's going to go for the Queen Mary on the Wednesday. And Warsaw is 6-1, and he was really, really impressive only 10 days ago. He was a massive price, 18-1, but he won impressively. He's going to be an intriguing one with Wayne Lorden on board. James MacDonald gets the ride on Underwriter, who shouldn't be underestimated. Laura Joy was talking this horse up on the juvenile horses to follow special for Royal Ascot, and Archie Watson's got a good pedigree when it comes to place horses in this race. George Gorman, who are you with in the Coventry?
Yeah, this is an advert, if there ever was one, to make sure you listen to the Final Furlong podcast, because both of my interests in this race sort of came through, well, one was through, both were through the juvenile talk that you had, and one was partially influenced by the Aidan O'Brien interview. So Gustad would be my one towards the top of the market. He's, of the runners that have only had one run, he's top on RPRs. He's well thought of by a producer that you had on the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think, look, he beat True Love 3/4 length at Navan over this trip. That's especially impressive, given she'd already had a run where she only found the very, very good Lady Iman too good in a listed event. You think, like, a horse finishes second in a listed event, you expect it to win a maiden next time out. So for a first time out horse to go and beat it, it's very impressive. And the third in that maiden was beaten 3.5 lengths, was beating just a neck on his only subsequent start. The only thing that could have put me off him would have been if Ryan Moore hadn't picked him, but luckily, thanks to the Final Furlong podcast, we knew nice and early that Ryan was going to be on board. And the other one, this is one of the few bets I had before decks closed for this day, is Andab. Saxon Warrior, full brother to the 2022 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf winner Victoria Road. Now, Victoria Road only won 7 furlongs and a mile, and Andab's also a brother to 2 7-furlong winners and just the 1 6-furlong winner. But given he's already a winner over 6 himself, the fact he doesn't have a pedigree dripping in speed isn't the biggest concern. He made a really big impression when showing a lot of speed to win a good ground 6-furlong Curragh Maiden, from which the second, who was beaten 4 3/4 lengths, and the fourth, who was beaten 7 lengths, have both won maiden since at Listowel and the Curragh respectively. His run in the Marble Hill is amongst the best available here. Like, he ran keen on the front end, and just sort of, it was one of those where he ran so keen he went too slow, if that makes sense. Where he's just trying to hold on to him. And then he ended up sort of then keeping on well to finish third, a length and a half behind Albert Einstein, who, you know, would have been favourite for whichever race he showed up for at Ascot. I think here in a bigger field, he ought to get more of a chance to get some cover and race more evenly, which will bring improvement on last time in itself, let alone the natural progression of a 2-year-old from race to race on top of that. I've already had a bet on this horse. I think he's a mental price given the run behind Albert Einstein last time. I'm very keen on him.
Okay, Tim Carroll, for you.
Oh, look, I think it's a little bit of a minefield, but I've come down with Military Code. I think there's a bit to like there. He's had the 2 runs. He's won both of them. I like the fact that he's won here at Ascot. Probably similar ground to what he's going to get on Tuesday, again, if the forecast's correct. I like the form around him. The 2 horses that have finished runner-up to him in both his starts have been subsequent winners. There's pace drawn on either side of the track, so it'll be interesting to see what they do here. But again, if you look at the top 3 in the market, Postmodern, G-Stad, Military Code, they're all drawn near each other on the high side. In fact, 4 of the 5 market leaders here are drawn on the high side. So I think he'll end up in the right spot. And even though he has showed a bit of pace in his races, I've got a feeling he's just going to end up with a nice trail here. So I'm not going to say it with a great deal of confidence because I think it is a tough little contest, as you could imagine. But Military Code would be my idea of the one to side with here. Okay,
it's 2 years since Charlie Appleby had a winner at Royal Ascot. Maybe this is going to be a big Royal Ascot for them, though. It begins with Notable Speech and then Military Code in the Coventry Stakes. Aidan O'Hara, 16 winners indeed for Aidan O'Brien in the juvenile division over the last 10 years. 3 of them have come in the Coventry, but they were all well-backed favourites. Are you with an Aidan O'Brien horse here? Or are you trying to find something that's a bigger price?
I can't go with my usual, like, just blindly go with like the third choice, Aidan O'Brien horse at 41, because two of them are near the top of the market. Funny enough, in that field, I've kind of come to, it's often not my bag, these kind of 2-year-old races, right? But going through them, the only two that stuck out to me were Andab. I won't go into as much detail as George there, but it's probably the best farm. I'm sure if it was race, it's probably the best farm in the race. And certainly Albert Einstein would be much short, he'd be favourite for this without a doubt. So I liked him. Just if there are no proper superstars in this, he's already got enough farm to beat a load of once run 2-year-olds, But the other one of the once run 2-year-olds, and I had a look at some of these earlier on. I kind of like this Koppel, or however you pronounce that. It doesn't look like the Irish word. But he's a big price. The form has worked out for his one win as well. So I quite like him. The way that he won, and David Probert was he really seemed to be certain in himself that he was going to win this, even though it looked like he might not. So of the once run horses, I like him. I wouldn't, in general, I'm never going to bet, even if I do think the likes of Gstaad and Warsaw, these are the most likely winners. There's under no circumstances could I back a 2-year-old at 4 and 6 to 1 in a 21 runner cavalry dash down Ascot. I just couldn't. It's just too, it's just too short a price. But of the unexposed ones, I quite like this couple. And he's farmed that Logie Bear that was third there has run well since as well. Just looks decent, but probably Andab for me. So we're kind of on the same.
It's funny you say that, Aidan, about the price and not wanting to back horse at 4 to 1 in the Coventry. I would happily get stuck into a 9 to 4 shot in this race without any hesitation if it was trained by Aidan O'Brien and it was 9 to 4 and you knew it was going to go off 7 to 4. Because he's got such a good record with the juveniles, and if they really like one and they get stuck into it, they like the optics of a well-backed winner at the Royal Meeting because it says we knew this horse was going to win. But that's the thing. I don't think either of these horses are going to go off that kind of a price. And so I'm not entirely certain if they...
I'm going to be going to this race.
Yeah.
What race is he going to go to? Yeah. They're both nice horses.
Oh, they're lovely.
They didn't really look like they were, I bet you they don't end up the year in these top 10.
Well, Aidan specifically highlighted Gstaad in the stable tour at the beginning of the season as a horse to follow, which makes no sense that he then goes off 7 to 1. But True Love was the odds-on favourite, so fair enough.
I also don't like Aidan O'Brien horse to win first time out.
I think
for me, they need a run to where they don't win, and then they might come back. Look
at Charles Darwin.
Yeah, there's loads of them, but look, for me, they're a bit short, and Andab definitely he probably has the best actual form, and he's like, what is he, 25 to 1 there, 20 to 1, 22 to 1?
Well, I'd argue Power Blue has the best form. I think Power Blue does, and your old friend Adrian Murray, who gave you the
similar, the
125 to 1 win only a couple of years ago. Well done, Aidan, with Power Blue. So we know he's got the pedigree to be able to win at Royal Ascot, third to Lady Aman, beat a very highly regarded horse that Jim Bulger has, Slaney View, who was subsequently defeated, but that horse will be winning sooner rather than later. And then the second to Albert Einstein is a big run in front of Andab. He's been acquired by Ammo. Laura Joy was telling us they've taken him out of the sale because he has been sold. It's Keith Jabraken who's bought him. So the hard work has been done for us, and I think he's going to be an interesting runner each way. Power Blue is the one I would side with as things stand, Peter.
Yeah, couldn't put you off, lads. As Tim said, 21 runner, 2-year-olds. A lot of them obviously have a massive, the potential they have. We don't know what they're capable of yet, obviously, so we are guessing a bit. The favourite Postmodern couldn't have been any more impressive in Yarmouth. Travelled well. Spencer, they let the others come to him, and he just nudged them, didn't even really push him out much. And he skipped 5 lengths, cleared him, and won easily. Now, the form isn't great, but he can only do what he's done, and that's win very easily by 5 lengths first time out. Now, he ran to RPR of 96, which is obviously solid enough. O'Brien's too, both were second strings when they won. So obviously, as you were saying, Emmet, I think True Love was more fancy that day, obviously. But he had put, is it Stad or is it Gstaad?
I think it's Gstaad. Maybe it's Stad.
Gstaad, okay. I don't know, I thought, having him back in my head, the commentary was Stad. But anyway, whatever it is. I prefer him over Warsaw. Just I saw anyway. I just think he's a nice horse, but look, who knows what step forward they're going to take between those two. But obviously both will have their chances. Military Code, for me, is the best thing for him on offer. I thought he was green at Newmarket. If I remember rightly, I think going to post, he was a little bit troublesome, did it well. And then after that, he carried a penalty and beat some nice horses. Fitzella's not a bad horse. I think she's been well tipped up for Ascot by Hugh Taylor, if I remember rightly. So that form has worked out well, and he gave them, he had a penalty to carry. He gave Fitzella £11, and Old as Gold, who's won after that, gave him £6. And I also like the fact that he's had a second run. That can only be a positive because, we know what sometimes horses produce their best performance first time out and never back it up. So at least we know he's backed that up. So for that reason, I'm going to put him up here because I know what I'm going to get with him. Whether it's good enough to beat all these unexposed ones, I don't know, but I'll go with Military Code. I think he's solid.
Okay, a couple of votes for Military Code in the first juvenile race of Royal Ascot. The first Group 1 sprint is the King Charles III Stakes. It's over the flying 5 furlongs, and last year's winner Asafora returns from Australia. Tim Carroll can tell us more in a second. Gets first-time blinkers, and Oisin Murphy, of course, is back on board. She is the joint favourite with the horse who was behind her a couple of times last season, Believing, who finally got her deserved Group 1 win. We're not going to see much more of her because she's in full to Frankel. There is a myth out there that mares who are in full suddenly improve in form. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Whether it's a fallacy or fact, you can decide for yourself. 9-2 though for Ryan Moore and Believing for George Bowie. Night Raider is now 6-1. This is extraordinary. He was a double figure price not that long ago. He's been purchased by Watnan. Carl Burke sounded very, very confident about him when I spoke to him for TalkSport 2 a couple of weeks ago. But 6-1 for a horse who's never run over this trip, hasn't won on grass, and hasn't won a Group 1. Somebody's confident. I'm not so sure if the market deserves him to be that price. Regional runner blinder in this race, and really always runs a blinder, is 6-1. And then you've got Magira, the Breeders' Cup hero Starlust, and American Affair, who's trying to bridge the handicap company into group race company. He was disappointing the other day, George, but I thought it was a bit indecisive from Paul Mulrennan, and they've turned down some big offers for him. I like him an awful lot, and he's got a Royal Ascot pedigree. Who are you with in the first sprint of the meeting?
Yeah, I just think Aidan might have just talked me round to one in the last. I just did quickly look up that Couples maiden form. The 2nd, 3rd, 6th, 9th and 11th have all won since, just if anyone's wanted to put that in their doc.
And he's, if you look at the finish of it, he's unbelievably confident, even though the horse nearly got past there. Anyway, we'll see. Hopefully, he goes.
And he's drawn 17, which could be the best spot to be. Like all the horses towards the top of the market and Andab are all sort of drawn in a little group there. But sorry, I'll go on with this race.
No, you're fine. Clive Cox did win this race back in the time everybody wants to forget, but he has won it before. So, yeah, interesting one. Very interesting one. He's a big price.
I'll tell you what, I'll make it. This is a flawless segue here. I'll start with talking about one of my place only chances. Is Kurdos, trained by Clive Cox. There you go. He was 5th, beating 3 1/4 lengths in this last year, but he was actually 3rd on his side, finishing just a length and a half behind Believing, who's this year's favourite, who he's drawn right next to again. I think there's one stall between them actually, but his seasonal reappearance was dreadful. But last year, he improved £15 on RPRs from first start to second. Christophe Soumillon's a very high-catching jockey booking. And like I said, Clive Cox's record with older sprinters is to be envied by all. Like that'd be a place-only one at a very big price. But my main sort of play in it will be regional. Beating a length in 7th. Made a seasonal return in Maidan, who's beaten 3/4 of a length by Believing. But that day he recorded an RPR of 119, which is the same as he did when he finished second in this last year. So given he's now 7, to be recording marks that high on seasonal debut as a sprinter, where you expect them to sort of come on from each run, that makes him of serious interest to me. I think, with his well being proven as well, just you can have a very cheeky each way bet on him there, couldn't you? Like it's each way bet to nothing. The other one that I haven't fully fleshed out yet, I may be playing each way, is Westacre. Had a very profitable time out in Maidan with a 5 furlong Group 2 and a 5 furlong Group 2 and Group 3 defeat of Pontos, who's rated 109, before being well beaten in that Group 1 behind Believing and Regional. He ran to RPRs of 113 and 114 in those 2 5 furlong races, before running to 100 over 6. You'd think returning back to 5 again would be up his street. Also, the £3 to £6 he receives from each of these actually makes him the best treated here. Off a mark of 100, actually best in at the weights, if you believe, depending on how strongly you believe in weight for age. But that sort of price, I might have a small each way bet on him. But for now, it's regional. Again, if the 7 to 1 holds up, I'll back him each way, and with the scummiest of scumbag each way bets, and a place only on Kurdos.
It's a very competitive race. I think the one on Saturday is a better running of the race, Tim, and we'll get your thoughts on that at the end of the show. But are the Aussies just going to win this again because your sprinters are better than ours?
Oh, yeah, look, I tell you, it's a funny thing with Aspera. I took her on last year in my defence. I was kind of told a week out that there was going to be rain at the meeting, and there wasn't. I didn't think she'd get up the hill on a wet track, unless it turns out it was quick ground. She came over here rated 111, and no Australian horse had won a race over here that was rated less than 118. So I was a bit surprised when she won even on the good ground. She's got a couple of things in her favour. She's got a few things, actually. Firstly, she's well drawn. If you look at the history of this race over the last 13 years, I think only one horse has drawn lower than 7 to win the race. So you tend to find middle to high draws, for whatever reason, work out here. And she's drawn in 10. In fact, over the last 10 years, the field here is 16. The average winning stall is 10. So she's in the right stall. I think the weather gods are going to be kind by the looks of things. And once again, with all respects, guys, she makes a pretty ordinary lot. Having said that, no horse away from Europe has ever won twice at the meeting, certainly not the same race. In a recent form, well, she went back home, she won a pretty soft Group 3, and then she got whacked in a Group 1, admittedly over 6 furlongs, and that's not her caper, but it was a pretty weak Group 1 for the fillies and mares. Could she win? Possibly, yep. She's got a lot of things in her favour. Believing, I think, is fine for favouritism. Well, she beat her in this last year. Then she finished one spot in front of her in the King George, which she should have won before finishing just behind her in the Nunthorpe. But I think Knight Raider's really interesting for a couple of reasons. Firstly, he's only had the 8 runs, and as I just mentioned, these are a pretty ordinary lot. He's got a fair bit of upside. I do take your point about him not winning on the turf yet. I think he's won 3 or 4 times, and they've all been on all-weather tracks. However, I thought he ran very well in defeat last time out in the Duke of York Clipper Stakes. Went from the front that day. Yep, they ran over the top of him, but that was over 6 furlongs. And let's be honest, I don't think now, I know they're buying everything. I think at the same time they're pretty focused. You're not going to try to sell them a horse unless you think it's going to do something for them. And I think this fella, the best is yet to come. He's drawn in 7, so he'd be my idea of the winner. Just getting back to believing, I thought, and I've said it's a rubbish field, to be fair to her, she ran with so much merit in defeat last year. After this race, she finished 3rd in the King George, placed in Nunthorpe, placed in a Flying 5, placed in an Abbey, and then she came out first up. Admittedly, it was a pretty weak contest, but she ran there. She won the Alquoise in Dubai. So I'd actually like to see her win this race because it's not really a strong punting race for mine, but I don't like that draw in 1. However, to offset that, of course, the man Ryan Moore is aboard. But for what it's worth, Knight Raider would be my idea of the winner. But I wouldn't be crying too much if the Australian mare came out and created a little bit of history. Given that draw bias, the fact that Blue Point is the only one to win from a low draw in the last 10 years, does stall 7 worry you for Knight Raider? Or do you think that James Doyle will just point and shoot and go? I don't think Blue Point was that low drawn, was he? If you got it in front of you, I thought he drew in about 9. No, he was in stall 1 in 2019. Was he? When he won this? Oh,
it might have been 9 on the Saturday.
Gold Dream 1 from 3, Profitable 1 from 8, Blue Point 1 from 1.
Yeah, Gold Dream was the one I had drawn low in 3, so I'll have to check the point there. Blue Point, but then again, you get back to Blue Point, well, he was a bit of a freak sprinter, wasn't he?
Oh, he was magic, yeah.
The other thing about this race, the one thing I would say, when you look at the run style, horses that tend to track the speed or lead, of course, we had Batash make all in this race, and well, Nature Strip kind of tracked, and then he got to the front very early just simply because he was travelling so much better than the rest. But there's only been one horse that's been held up in the last 10 years, and again, Soul Power actually, if you go back to 2014, but that was 11 years ago. So the one that was held up, I think it was Oxted, wasn't it, in 2021. So you tend to find horses that can track the speed over 5 furlongs here at Ascot do well.
Yeah, and also just in the last couple of years, whatever has been going on at the track, you normally want to be with that Jamie Spencer or Holly Doyle hold-up ride. Pace has actually been holding up, and it certainly holds up in this race. I think Knight Rider's a really interesting horse. The problem is, Aidan, the price is starting to just vanish.
Starting to vanish. Jeez, it's very short. It's very short. It's unbelievably short. That goes off at 14-1, that Night Raider. That no way that can go that price. I don't get it at all. But then again, I probably don't really look at that. I just rule out everything that's a short price in a 23 runner cavalry charge anyway, because the luck factor is pretty. I mean, obviously believing the top three there, like regional, believing Asfora might not be as good as last year, maybe. Believing in regional are obviously good, but they have been. You're missing Bradsell. I think you're down a kind of a star or two this year compared to last year. I don't think this is a better race than the last couple of years. Which, unfortunately, the way this thing is going, it looks like I didn't look at anything, and I'm just going, well, as George said. But I do like this Cerdas. I have two big price ones, right? And I do like Cerdas. I thought he ran well last year. These sprinters, I mean, so much has to go right in a 5 furlong sprint. You just have to pick something that if the things go right for him, he has the capability of winning it. And I think he has the capability of winning it if everything goes right. And it's just a big price. I would give him much better chance than Buccaneer, Forte, Rumstar, Tropical Storm, Balmoral. They're all shorter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I give him a decent chance. I do give him a decent chance. And I mean, I love Smoulian or whatever.
Smoulian?
Anyway, as a jockey. And I'd like him in this race as well. I just think, you know what? He's going to be fighting out. He's a near certainty to be fighting out between 1 and 7, Cerdas, in this race, I think, right? Which means if you're getting 4 places at 50-1 is the price. Do you know what I mean? He's got to be somewhere in or around. He's maybe more likely to finish between 6 and 8, maybe, but I think he's got a bit of improvement. I like him now. Not everything went right in some of his races. There's no Bradsell, as probably not as good as she was. This might have come back to the likes of him a little bit, I think. I have one more, and this is just a silly one, but it has worked in the past, right? This kind of thing in these 5 furlong sprints. But Twilight Calls have been absolutely useless this year, right? There's no doubt about it. But
here.
Every year in this race, including last year, is by far its best run. So it just wants an Ascot 5 furlongs fast madness. And I mean, I was kind of delighted Jamie Spencer was on as well, just going to suit this.
Yeah, that's true.
Look, again, it had rubbish runs this year, but it wouldn't be the first time. It just wouldn't be the first time for that horse to have a couple of poor runs. I mean, in 2023, same two races, 9th and 9th, right? And then 4th to Bradsell in this race. Bradsell and Highland Princess were the first two there. So that's definitely a better race than this. And I know it's younger and all that, but that doesn't... Sprinters... They're fast. I'm not sure they get a lot slower until they're much older, Well,
you could argue they actually get faster at this age for whatever reason.
Age doesn't really. Age and some horses is more of a mental. I mean, I think they're plenty good enough. It's just whether they want to go through with it. But obviously, something about this particular race, because it was 6th again last year, and watching it had to kind of come down the middle, maybe in the wrong place. Do you know what I mean? And ran just as well last year. And it's a similar, last year's race, very similar to this. So again, going on, this is the 4th year in a row. It's been placed twice. It was 6th last year. It's 66-1. I love Jamie being on this now, the way this goes and stuff like that. And no different in form than the previous couple of years when it's running this race. So 66 is very big. I would have it very short to be involved somewhat in the finish. In other words, in the first kind of 7 or whatever. Okay. Because this isn't that great a race, I don't think.
Well, it's wide open.
No, sorry, it's a great race, but there's no superstar in it.
But there's no superstar. It's kind of one of the reasons why I quite like Knight Raider, but the price is just Jesus. Speaking of prices, does anybody have that number for the Japanese crew? Has anybody seen the French Oaks?
No. What was the result?
Gizora and Christophe Soumillon have beaten Bedtime Story. You all know this, by the way, but for the benefit of the guests, Bedtime Story, who was backed from 5-1 into 11-4 at the off, and Kanruka or Kanzuka, She's Perfect has finished 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th, 8th, 9th. Faded quite badly towards the end. Just cut out. She was up at the pace. Hey, very easy with the benefit of hindsight. I'm pretty sure she will bounce back sooner rather than later.
Not Emmet. They should have taken that money all day long.
God, I didn't want to say it. Yeah.
What's the horse rated? What's her rating? 105?
About that,
You're getting 2.5 million for a horse rated 105. Who could? I know she'll have breeding value anyway, but horses, all it takes is one wrong turn in their stable box, and they might never be the same again. I've learned from my past. I mean, if that offer was true and it was nowhere near enough, well, that guy needs help. If two nowhere near enough for a filly rated 105, stop.
The only thing is, it's only, what is it each? Was it 40 grand?
Yeah, well, that's I can see that because they're living a dream.
They think they're going to get 2 years of going to Group 1 races. It's going to cost them 40 grand. You see, if that was like 3 or 4 owners, and they're getting $500,000 each, there's no doubt in the world that they would have sold. But 40 grand if you're going to get to go to maybe Longchamp on Arc Weekend,
Breeders' Cup.
You know what I mean? For a lot of people, when are they ever going to have that chance?
But then again, they could have just, take it. I agree with that because they're living the dream and they might never get a horse as good as that because getting a horse with that ability is very hard. But then again, they'd have so much money to reinvest and get more horses that could take them even, more days out.
Well, except you're almost 90% certain to lose your shirt, though. Most horses that you buy, aren't you? You know what I mean? You could have 50 goes and you wouldn't get one.
But this horse might just be hard to place now. See, that's the thing. She might have had her day.
Well, anyway, the way she's run here, it wouldn't have mattered where you took her. It wouldn't have mattered if it was the Coronation or this race. She's just the petrol tank is emptied. She hasn't run a race for whatever reason. Look, they've still got a lot of bright days ahead with her, I'm sure.
Send her down to Australia. She'll win $2.5 million in 2 or 3 runs. Proper prize money down there. Stop.
Straight on the plane to Australia. Straight on the plane. 5 Group 1 wins. You get a £1 billion offer from the Japanese all of a sudden, and then you can tweet whatever you want.
I tell you what, I wish I had paid $2.5 million for Via Sistina. Look what she's done.
My God, what a horse! What a horse! Yeah.
To be fair, she kind of put the writing on the wall a little bit here when she was a luckless second in the Champion Stakes. And the funny thing is, and don't worry, I won't go off piece for too long, they kind of thought she liked a little bit of giving the ground, but she's proven that theory wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the owner being really annoyed about her getting beaten in that race as well, and me thinking, it's a bit much, mate. King of Steel's a good horse. Turns out.
I think she should have won that day.
Yeah.
I think she should have won. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, okay, 2 wild prices. Twilight Call, 66-1. Ex-Henrik Kennedy, now Richard Spencer. Jamie on board, of course, and Kurdos with the French Oaks winning jockey Christophe Soumillon, one of our favourites on the show. A 50-1 shot. Peter Michael, who are you with in the King Charles III?
Well, I must say Aidan has made it quite... I mean, when you look at Twilight Calls there and the points he's made, I mean, he does still have a few lengths to make up to actually, get involved in the finish, but the price is quite big. So that could appeal. I can definitely see, his case for that horse. Look, when we did this on Thursday, I was saying Believin' has been unlucky with the draw a few times last year, and who knows, maybe she's been unlucky again. She's been drawn 1, exactly what she was drawn last year in this. Last year, the winner, the Australian mare, and I think regional second in it. They were drawn high, but they tacked over towards the others in the last furlong and a half. So let's see what the draw does this year. We won't really know until the day. I know Tim was saying high is the place to be. So maybe Believing's being drawn, on the wrong side again. But I'm still going to go with her. Ryan Moore, obviously, can only be a positive. She's in foal, as you said, which I think is a help. Knight Raider, very interesting. I don't know. I think he's better on the all-weather. Now, I know obviously he's been running against lesser class horses there, but I just think he's better on the all-weather. And I think I think even though he's won over further, I think the way they're going to ride him, they could probably burst him. I think he's going to be crying out for the line in the last half furlong or the last 100 yards. And whether the line comes out in time for him, I don't know. But I could definitely see him, like he'll be clinging on coming the last 100 yards. Whether or not he clings on, I don't know. I can see a few going by him in my mind. The Australian mare has blinkers on for the first time, which is interesting for a 6-year-old mare. So who knows what that will do. But you have to respect her, obviously. And as the boys have said, it's not the strongest of fields, And in theory, it wouldn't surprise me if anything won it. But I think Believing is due one of these in the UK. So I think, I hope she gets it.
I think Buchanora Forte is kind of interesting. I just think Knight Raider's going to make all and win, personally.
I think he'll be crying out for it. I think... did Carl say he needed the run last time?
Yes.
When you were speaking to him?
Yeah, he said he needed the run, and also that Oisin Murphy said to him, drop this horse back to 5 furlongs and they won't see which way he's going.
Well,
surely Wolfman Racing aren't buying a horse that's going to only be suited to the all-weather.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I just think he'll be crying out for the line in the last 100 yards. But hopefully for you guys, if you're on him, I have no interest in this yet. We'll see.
Well, I hope Aidan's right that he drifts all the way out to 16-1. We take the best price. James Doyle does us a big favour live on TalkSport 2. I think he's just going to go out, make all, and win. He's the one I'm going to side with, the new shooter in the division, because I agree with the vast majority of you. That form from last season is fine. It's fine. It's not great. Believing has had draw biases and pace biases against her. She deserves a Group 1. She got it the last day. You'd like to see her get one in the UK as well. Knight Rider for me. And American Affair, who's going to have the high draw, which he should be favoured by, and he's got pace around him as well. If Mulrennan just has balls of steel and waits and waits and waits and then goes towards the end, he's the one who might be able to pick up the pieces late on. I think there's more improvement to come from him. That's what I'm going to side with. All right, St. James's Palace Stakes. What a clash. 3 Guineas winners from 3 different countries. The Newmarket hero ruling court. Epsom's loss is Royal Ascot's gain, as he will bid to once again beat Field of Gold, the Irish 2,000 Guineas winner, who was devastatingly impressive at the Curragh when blowing away the opposition under first-time rider Colin Keane. He, of course, will be on board again as Judd Mont's new number 1 rider. And then we've got Henri Matisse, who Aidan O'Brien told us on the Final Furlong podcast last year, the justification for sending him to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile turf, running him round a bend at Delmar on good to firm ground, might knock some of the nonsense out of him. It absolutely has. He won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile turf. He's won the Irish Guineas trial. More importantly, he's won the French 2,000 Guineas, beating Camille Pizarro, who beat Field of Gold last year and then went on to win the French Derby. Henri Matisse himself wasn't far behind Field of Gold in the Prix-Jean-Luc Lagardère, and yet he's 4-1. Field of Gold, 11-8 on. That does not make sense to me, George Gorman.
Field of Gold was... I think it's hard to argue that he wasn't better than Ruling Court in the English Guineas, that he wasn't an unlucky loser, but even if you thought Ruling Court was better in the Guineas, what Field of Gold's done subsequently is miles clear of that. I can't see how he finishes behind Ruling Court here, especially given Ruling Court's trained for the Derby rather than this and has been peaked and now is going to be trying to stay at a peak for getting on for 10 days. I just can't see how Field of Gold finishes behind him. As for Henri Matisse, he needs a very strong pace to show his best, and he got that in the French Guineas. There were a couple of pacemakers in front, and even in having everything run to suit him, he ran to an RPR £4 below Field of Gold's Irish Guineas. Yeah, he's going to have the pacemaker. Even with all the luck in the world, I don't see how he goes past Field of Gold, because even that towering form is in the Curragh. He sat out in fresh air for the entire race. It wasn't ideal. He was trying to avoid another hard luck story, wasn't he, Colin Keane? But despite all that, he was miles clear of anything Henri Matisse has shown us so far. Miles clear of anything Ruling Court has shown us so far. So I think it's going to be a case of keep it simple for me. It's going to Field of Gold. Okay,
just the 7 runners. So each way betting is kind of dead here. Tim Carroll, but who are you going to side with in the clash of the Guineas winners, or is there anything that could step forward and challenge them?
I don't think you'd be looking outside the top 3. Ruling Court, I feel a little bit sorry for him because he's going to be taking on a couple of teams, isn't he? You've got Winlord there, who's going to go forward again to try to set it up for Field of Gold, and Aidan's got the 3 runs, at least one, probably 2 of them, they're going to go forward and try to set it up for Henri Matisse. But look, for what it's worth, I thought Field of Gold, as much as I think Kieran Schumacher caught far more flack than what he should have, I still feel that Field of Gold probably should have won the Guineas over here. I don't think he would have won it by a lot, but I just think Kieran rode him with a little bit too much confidence. Sort of too cute, I suppose. I really liked the interview he did with Chappers afterwards, where he basically said that he tried to get him through the dip, and I think sometimes jockeys let too much rubbish get in their heads. He had a horse in front of him that's got a big turn of foot, and he should have just got on his bike a little bit earlier. But look, either way, Field of Gold maybe slightly unlucky in the Guineas over here. He goes over the island. He probably won that race the way he should have, but he was still very impressive. And I think Colin Keane, we all know, and I'm sure you guys will say the same, he's obviously an elite rider. And I think he'll take all the beating, but I do take your point. I do think he's a little bit short and a little bit of even money. That would sort of get me interested. I wouldn't want to run in at odds on. The other one there, I'm going to go with Henri Matisse because I do think that they'll run this at a pretty decent bat. We've got several pacemakers, at least 2, maybe 3 pacemakers here. I think Henri Matisse might just put a little bit of value into the forecast. And I say all that, and I'm a big fan of Ruling Court, but that's just how I see the race.
Tim, fist bump, baby. Fist bump. All about Henri Matisse. Ruling Court, what? All about Henri Matisse here. This is going to set up perfectly for him, surely, Aidan.
No. I don't mind him. To me now, he looks the type that is one of those horses that's achieved the absolute maximum he could possibly get in winning a French 2000, and he won't be. I can't see him improving. A Field of Gold really hosed up in that Irish 2000 Guineas. I don't know. I kind of think he's just going to be way too good. Now, I'm obviously, it's a pity there's no each way betting. I'm sort of unsure that the English 2000 Guineas ridiculously is like nearly turned it into a trial race. But I definitely prefer Field of Gold. I don't think he was unlucky at all in the English 2000 Guineas. Just he didn't pick up like he picked up in the Irish one. And the Curragh is a much fairer track anyway. And similarly, Ascot is going to suit him because the uphill finish definitely going to suit him. He just looks. I think he looks a good bit too good. It's a good race. I don't. The problem runners. I'll be trying for a couple of forecasts and stuff, but. For me, to get some kind of forecast off, you have to get Ruling Court and Henri Matisse out of the first 2, both of them, which is probably difficult as well. I kind of wonder, is there much between the likes of Rashapar and the likes of Henri Matisse? Just he's a horse that likes finishing second, which can be useful, and often they'll do that in better races. There's one there, Officer hits some of my old-fashioned Aidan O'Brien outsider rules. One of those is something that was really backed heavily the last time. So he was kind of heavily backed in the Irish 2000 Guineas. He didn't really do anything, but often those ones are showing something. But the problem with it is, even if I think Henri Matisse is, he's got the maximum he's going to get for his ability. And even if I think Ruling Court, similar, won the Royal Ascot Derby trial in Newmarket, they're still very decent horses. It's going to be hard to get something else to interest the likes of me into the places there. I mean, I'll be 50 to 1. I'll probably do some kind of, just because he hits that, if the price is big enough, that old Aidan O'Brien horse backed previous time thing has worked in the past. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Enough times where I might get like it'll be a massive price forecast. But I think it's difficult this time because once you have the 2 other 2000 Guineas winners in it, one of them has to run to at least what they ran in one of the 2000 Guineas, which would be enough to be second anyway. More than likely.
I respect Field of Gold, Peter. I get it, but the way he's talked about, the way he's priced up for this race, like, you'd think he won a Group 1 juvenile. You'd think he's won the 2000 Guineas. He didn't do any of that. He was beaten fair and square in the Prix-Jean-Luc Lagardère. He was beaten in the 2000 Guineas. I think he was the best horse in that race. I think he should have won. But I don't want to take too much away from Ruling Court because Buick chose to ride him over a European champion juvenile and a dual Group 1 hero who may very well take all the beating in the Commonwealth Cup. Henri Matisse is by Wootton Bassett out of a Coronation Stakes winner. He's trained by the winning most trainer in the history of Royal Ascot, by a man who's had multiple St. James's Palace Stakes winners. He really should have won the Vincent O'Brien National Stakes. He was absolutely the best horse in the race that day, and he threw it away. He's kind of thrown it away in a messy pre-Jean-Luc Lagardère where they were saying he was intimidated on the day and maybe the ground didn't suit him. And maybe that's the same for Field of Gold as well. But there's nothing between these two on that run. He's won a Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. He's won an Irish Guineas Trial when Aidan's horses all needed their first run, or the majority of them did. And then he's won a French 2,000 Guineas as well. 4-1 is just too big about him.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see your case, Emmet. Yeah, it's a very interesting race. Tim, I think, has hit the nail on the head. To be honest, I think Field of Gold will win, but he's not much value, even though I think he'll win. I think he should have won the Guineas. I think there's no two ways about it. The horse will stay 10 furlongs. I know that. The trainer knows that. The jockey should have known that. He should have gone after him earlier. And the thing about that, though, is in the Curragh, he was ridden perfectly, but I don't think he ran to a much better. I know the RPR is he ran 125 at the Curragh and he's 121 at Newmarket. But as I said on Thursday, if you use Cordy Champ as a guide, he hasn't ran that much better at the Curragh. So whether he's improved from it or not, I don't know. So that's what I do think he's the most likeliest winner. I think he is, perfect. Like the price is fair. I wouldn't call it value, but I do think he's the most likely winner. Henri Matisse is a horse I'm very interested in. The faster they go, the better for him because, as Aidan said, and as we know, he has his own mind and he just needs to get his mind on the game. And the faster they go, the less chance he has to start thinking and wondering about. But I know it's going to sound stupid at what this horse has done this year because at Leopardstown, it looked as if he needed the 8th furlong. And a Longchamp, obviously, they absolutely flew and he won. So, you can't say he doesn't stay. He does stay. But I just think I'd love to see this horse over 6 furlongs. I'd love to see him in a Group 1, a very fast pace, and him coming there. I think that's what he's made for. And because I think that, I just wonder how he's going to finish out the last 100 yards of this race with the pace they're going to go. Now, I know Longchamp, they went at very, very fast pace, but I think he's taking on better horses here. So I know Ryan's going to ride him to come as late as possible because that's his run style. He can't take it up too late, especially the way this race is going to unfold. And he'll come there and he'll have every chance. But I just wonder in the last half a furlong, 100 yards, a Field of Gold will be too strong for him. And of course, you can't rule out Ruling Court. He'll be banged there. So Field of Gold to beat Henri Matisse and Ruling Court. That's the way I'd look at this.
Okay, straight exacta. Henri Matisse. I can't wait for it. It's going to be a cracking race. Let us know in the comment section below on YouTube who you were with in the St. James's Palace Stakes in the battle of the 3 classic winners, and should one of them be a dual classic winner. More on that to come on the Final Furlong Podcast. We'll go on to the big handicap, the first big handicap of the week. It's the Ascot Stakes, the Heritage Handicap, where for the first time ever, the ruler of Great Britain has a racehorse in training in the Republic of Ireland. Willie Mullins, often a guest in the royal procession, is now controversially, because there's a number of British trainers launched an objection to this. They weren't happy. Oh, why can't we have this horse? Because Willie Mullins is the GOAT, that's why. Because he's probably going to win. Ryan Moore booked 7-2 is the price about reaching high. The gamble continues. You've got the East India Dock, the Chester Cup winner, rematching with the horse who beat him in the Triumph Hurdle, Ponerous. William Buick will ride him for Willie Mullins. East India Dock was very, very impressive in the Chester Cup. Tony Martin's Alphonse Legrand. Not controversial at all. Jamie Spencer on board, 10-1 shot. And then you've got a number of other horses, including Liari, who's been switched to the Michael Belliard. He could be set for a big, big week at Royal Ascot. George Gorman, all your old favourites from the jumps game, and a royal runner for Willie Mullins in the Ascot Stakes. Who's going to take it?
Yeah, look, I tried to look at this with my objective hat on because it's very easy to go. Queen's horse, Willie Mullins, it's a certainty. I thought he had every chance to go by the last day and didn't.
Ooh.
Personally, I think he stuck his head in the air. That's not for me. East India Dock and Ponerous are, in theory, compared to the mark they achieved over hurdles, very well handicapped. East India Dock got a very good ride for me the last day, and I'm not keen on backing horses that go up that much for what I consider to be a very, very good ride. Like, what's he got? Like, you set up £8 for what I thought was a perfect ride. Ponerous hasn't run on the flat for 262 days, so I'm guessing, as you mentioned, Alphonse Legrand just there, I'm fairly keen on Manxman, and it'd be very interesting. See, he was an unlucky loser of the Cesarewitch, depending on how you see it, behind Alphonse Legrand last year of £9 lower. He looked that day like he probably would get this trip. He was third on the Ascot round course over a mile 6 back in July, so you sort of know that he likes the round course at Ascot. The horses that beat him are now £7 and £8 higher. This term he's run to career best RPRs of 98 and 100 over 2 miles, and given we know he gets further than 2 miles, he could prove to be well handicapped yet, going up to this trip. And crucially, there's a horse that's higher up in the betting, in the Copper horse, Caballo de Mar, who beat him 4 lengths 3 starts back. So that's sort of related contingency double for you. If Manxman runs as well as I think he can here, it's well worth keeping an eye on that horse and the Copper horse. Away from them, Liari only ran 3 times over shorter trips than this on the flat in France. Bought as juvenile hurdler for Paul Nicholls, dual listed winner as a juvenile, acquitted himself fairly well in handicaps this season. I think he was 6th in a Betfair. Of his sort of French mark on his first run back on the flat for Michael Bell, he ran out a 5-length winner over a mile 6. The 3rd and 4th were beaten 9 1/4 lengths that day, and both have come out and finished 3rd on the next start, beating a length and 1/4 and 2 1/4 lengths respectively. I think a rise of £7 for a 5-length win on the flat is very lenient. And I just think he had a go at this trip over hurdles in the last. That was on soft ground, and his wins on the flat have come on good and good to firm, while his 2 defeats have come on soft and very soft. So I think if staying up the trip, he could be ahead of a handicapper still. He's going to be my main selection, I think. I say I'm not fully settled on Manxman yet, but I also like Ascending for Henry de Bromhead. Jump Trainers have a very good record in this race. And he was good enough to finish 4th in the Spring Juvenile Hurdle at the DRF and 5th in the Triumph 2 years ago. It appears to have trained some stamina into him, as his return to the flats yielded 2 seconds and 2 wins. 2 starts back, he won by 9 lengths over 2 miles at Dundalk, fairly meriting a rise of £11. It was interesting then they dropped him back to a mile 4, almost like they were like, we don't want to show our hand too much ahead of Ascot, and yet he still won by a neck at Cork on good turf that day as well. Proof that he still goes on the turf. He went up £2 for that, and I think returning to more extreme trips, he could have more up his sleeve here. So it's Liari and Ascending for me, but a positive mention for Manxman.
Yeah, I quite like Ascending as well. Billy Lee going for the hat-trick. It does worry me a little bit about him cocking the head in the air. I just wondered if it was first run. I'm pretty sure I heard Ruby Walsh saying he could run well, but it's all about Royal Ascot for him. Just think this is a well-executed plan where Willie Mullins will be there with the top hat, being handed a trophy at about 5:10 on the Tuesday, Tim Carroll.
Well, it has all the hallmarks of Willie Mullins' gamble, doesn't it? Ride more aboard Willie Mullins. You got the Royal Colours, probably trained by Sir Michael Stout, and ran well enough in defeat on debut for the Yard. I just want to get back to a point, though. You sort of say Night Raider, who goes around earlier on the card in the sprint, has never won on the turf. Well, not as this fella.
Yeah, that's true.
He's had 1 win. I mean, he did hack up, but the 1 win came at Wolverhampton, and then straight after that he went to York, and the run was too bad to be true, but they found nothing afterwards. The vet had a look at him, nothing wrong. He was beaten 70-odd lengths. I don't know. Look, he may well win the race, and that's well and good. He'll go around without my money because I think he's plenty short enough in the betting. The other point I would make too, when you look at these sort of races, I'd be the first to admit the runners I'd be looking at are the Irish runners, but they haven't actually won this for a few years. You've got to go back. I think it was 2018. Willie Mullins sort of won it, I think, 3 times in 4 years. But to be fair, back then they had a bit of a run in the race. I want to ask you guys something. A, is Leinster for Joseph O'Brien lining up? And B, what's happened since his last run at Chester? Is he lost a leg? Because everywhere I'm looking, he's 20-1 plus. I know that he might have been a tad disappointing at Chester. He finished 3.5 lengths behind East India Doc, who's the second favourite here. But he was just a tad keen on the front end. He didn't really help himself a lot. He was only having start number 5. I can see plenty of upside to him. And look, admittedly, I'm probably being a little bit price sensitive, but I thought he'd be around about half the price he currently is. Anybody have a theory? Is it the fact that he's gone up in the weights despite the fact that he was beaten and he's been drawn in double figures?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know.
I would imagine he'll go forward. I know what you're saying about the draw, but I would imagine he'll be allowed to slide forward. I'm not saying he will lead, but I would think they'd put him somewhere near the front end. I suppose you could argue he didn't see out the trip last time, but as I say, he didn't help himself by taking a little bit of a tug. And he's with Joseph O'Brien. He's just a brilliant trainer and does have a habit of improving them very quickly. I thought he looked good when he went first up as a 4-year-old at the Curragh to start prior. It wouldn't surprise me if he ran a hell of a race here. Yeah,
I agree. I can see it. And obviously, Joseph is a bit of a genius when it comes to these big races. It is a concern, though, that he's drifting in the way he is because that stable does like to get stuck in. They've got Nürburgring as well. Maybe it's the fact that Colin Keane's going to be on board Nürburgring. Dylan Brown McBonigle is the number 1 jockey. So he's chosen him.
I think he is. And I remember having a chat to someone who was working there at one point when I won't say too much, but we were looking at getting an Australian rider into the place a couple of years ago. And they were basically saying, look, whoever rides them out in the mornings, they get the ride race day if they've got the choice. Sometimes, obviously, you've got owners involved and that sort of thing. But I wouldn't read too much into a rider booking when you're looking at the Joseph O'Brien yard.
Yeah. It's typically, though, that Dylan Brown is number 1. Declan McDonough's going to ride Dawn Rising. He's a shorter price. Nürburgring is a shorter price with Colin Keane on board. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, and he doesn't have much to find with East India Dock. Maybe it's just all about this Willie Mullins gamble. That's not going to be your price, though, Aidan O'Hara.
God, no. I mean, when you look at this race, you really struggle to find 2.5 miles around Royal Ascot is a totally different race than almost anything else. You really have to struggle to find something that's definitely going to stay at that 2.5 miles with that uphill finish. I mean, that's probably why now I was kind of all interested in Dawn Rising. I probably wouldn't be interested in the price he's at there now, but I'd be almost certain that's going to drift. Yeah, and I think it's certain this will drift to around between 28 and 33 to 1, and at that price, I have his place chances of being in the first 5 like remarkably short. I think very short. Do you know what I mean? Because he's the one horse in this that probably needs a 3 mile flat race. He's certain to stay. Well, his form and handicap.
They would have run him in the Queen Alexandra, except that he's come down the weights, so it's too tempting.
He's come down to 100, you see. So they've run him in this instead. I mean, his Ascot record is exceptional. He does like fast ground. He go on anything, but he does like good to firm. I mean, I kind of got interested in backing him in that Chester Cup. Hilarious run. I mean, he broke slow and he just stayed out the back, and probably correctly in that you can't win from there in Chester anyway. So why would you? You know, so he just totally pulled him up more or less, which probably is the correct thing to do. But apart from that, if you look at his handicap results are excellent. You know, they're excellent. He's been third on unfavourable soft ground in the Irish Cesarewitch. Very off higher marks as well. Third in that, and he definitely wants better ground. If you look at his form, he's run up against Kyprios and that kind of thing. He runs okay, often over 14 furlongs, not long enough, you know. Last year he was third in it again, third in the Queen Alexandria, running to his mark of about 105. He over 17 furlongs, he was placed again in the Cesarewitch, 102 again, closing at the end. It just has too many good runs. And then he was on soft ground, which doesn't really suit him. He was 5th again in the Cesarewitch off 104, and he's like a stone better off Legrand and those horses there. And his runs this year have certainly been, I think they had a mark they needed him to get to, which was 100. And I mean, they ran over 10 furlongs on heavy ground in his first run this year. Then he had that loll around the back in Chester. So I do like it. But all that said, and I've kind of backed already because I kind of had hoped he'd go here. I kind of took the gamble that he wouldn't go to that other race because they got him down to 100. So, but if you, I mean, Leinster is interesting now at the price he's at. If you take into consideration he pulled brutally at the start of that Chester Cup. I mean, to be anywhere near the first few in Chester Cup after doing that over 2 miles, 2 furlongs, he probably does stay. But aside from that, we'd see what the prices do on it. The only one that I could pick off the top of the market, I think I prefer Ponyross than any of those other ones. He just looks like, his hurdle runs, he just looks like a horse that's going to stay. He's going to finish well in this race, but he's too short. The only thing at a huge price, and I'm hoping obviously that Don Rising does get to a bigger price. He will. At 20, he'll be. For some unknown reason, I'm drawn to this Feigning Madness, who's like totally unexposed over the trip, like a lot of these. But there's just something about him that interests me over this trip and the type of races he's been running. Even the last time he was behind Yashin, Coltrane, Divine Comedy. Well, he just looks one-paced, but I don't know what it is. I often can't, I have no times to back on it, nothing like that. Just he's interesting and he's a massive price. But mainly at Don Rising, I just feel, first of all, he could win it. He is good enough to win a race like this. He's certainly, one thing he will be doing is staying on at the end. But we don't know, 9 out of 10 of those horses, we haven't a clue whether they're going to stay or not. But he's my main one. And I'm kind of half interested in this Feigning Madness. Just, I don't know why. But I am. He's unexposed.
I like the other Rafe Beckett horse. All of Rafe Beckett's wins at Royal Ascot have come in handicap company. I thought Artistic Star is a bit of a project horse that they've been trying to get down the weights, and it's worked. He shaped well behind Story Horse the other day. It's an extreme step up in distance. Jack Dace takes off 7 pounds.
2.5 miles though.
Yeah, but he's a Galileo. He should have a lot of class, and he did. He was very highly tried as a 3-year-old. He ran in the Derby. He was sent off 22-1 behind Augusta Rodin. He was no match for him, obviously, but got within 6 lengths of King of Steel, who we talked about earlier on. Wasn't beaten far by Desert Hero. They tried him in the Voltager. Continuous destroyed him. Last season was all right. 25-1, I think he's interesting, and he might drift out because he's Jack Dace ridden and not, Hector Crouch is obviously riding your one. I thought he was intriguing. I still keep coming back to this Royal horse, though. It almost seems too obvious, Peter Michael. Willie Mullins for the King. Of course he wins.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, since Willie got the horse, I presume this has been the plan. But out of estimate, which we know is, stayed all day for the Queen, so the step up and trip, I mean, you're not guaranteed to stay it until you run, and we won't know, but there's encouragements in the breeding anyway to say that he should get it. So obviously that's going to have a big chance. The draw of 1, I don't know, could that make it tricky? I don't know, we'll see anyway.
I'd rather be drawn low.
Yeah, it's a competitive race, obviously. We're at Royal Ascot. It's a handicap. Generally, I've made a point that, especially even in Ireland, I think the Irish handicapper is absolutely ridiculous the way he whacks up horses for winning. But in a race like this, certain horses, and I'll come to them in a minute, they've been laid out for this, so it mightn't apply to them. But just if horses are running, every 3-4 weeks, and then they're running a big handicap, I think that's when they're going to suffer, because I think, they're going up way too much compared to what they do in the UK, and it does take its toll. But in a race like this, it could be reaching high, obviously. I mean, he's an Irish trainer, Willie Mullins, but he's got his mark from England, so that doesn't apply to that. East India Duck, obviously, he's won. You have to give East India Duck a big chance. The only thing is, he's been on the go a long time now, and it will eventually catch up with him. Whether it'll catch up on Tuesday, I don't know, or whether he can keep going. But he's a horse in the future. I'd love to see him in the Stairs Hurdle, because I think he's all about stamina. I know James Owen said he got outstayed at Cheltenham, but I don't. Maybe he just wasn't good enough. I don't think he got outstayed, because I think he needs every inch of 2 miles on the flat. And if you do, generally you're going to stay 3 miles on the flat.
He's thinking that way now. I interviewed him after Chester. He is thinking that way now.
If he's going for the Stairs Hurdle, let me know, because I'm going to start betting him anti-post first.
I'll find out.
I haven't done. I haven't done in a while. I haven't had anti-post bets in a while, but I think he'll be very interesting. Now I hope the horse gets a break soon, because he's been on the go for a long time. The Mullins horse, Panois, obviously you have to respect again, got his mark in the UK, and we know what Willie did with him at Cheltenham. Then we come to my 2 horses, Emmet. Don't know if you remember them, Manxman and Alphonse Legrand from the was it the Cesaro, which they were first and second.
He gave the forecast. The man gave the forecast on the Final Furlong podcast. Insane stuff.
I think it was 600-1, those 2. So I respect those 2 greatly, and look what Tony Martin's done with this Alphonse Legrand. He's won 155,000 in prize money in the UK with this horse. basically probably because of what the Irish handicapper is doing in my mind. Because if you win those races, if you win one big race in Ireland, you're going to get like that Chester race you won against Hamilton. He won by 2.5 lengths. He got put up £8 for that win. If that was in Ireland, he'd have got close to a stone for that.
Yeah.
But anyway, look, I think he'll stay. I think he's got a good chance. Manxman will stay. I think he's got a good chance. Joseph O'Brien has 5 in it, and the one I'm interested in is New Burgering. I'm very interested in this horse. The ground is a bit of an unknown if it's on the fast side. I know they have it as good as racing on the Racing Post for this, but the BHA have it as good to firm, so it'll be interesting to see. He's off 93. They ran him last time over 10 furlongs, which was just, that's just taking the piss, really. The horse he needs 2 miles minimum in the flat. He's another one that's going to improve over the jumps when he goes over further, and he's going to improve for this trip. There's no doubt that he's going to improve for this trip. The ground is a bit of a concern. He's drawn 20, which won't make it easy. He's put cheek pieces on him and tongue tie again. He did that at Cheltenham and Calvo Potter. So that's also a bit interesting. But if you go to that run, I think Andy, sorry, 1 second, let me just get up here. Aidan was referring to it in the Curragh when Don Rising was running in it. It was the Irish Cesarewitch. And Nürburgring was finishing very well in that race that day, and he didn't get the clearest to run. He was a little bit tight for room, and he hit the line well. He's £3 higher for this race on Tuesday, and that's good form. Don Rising was 4 lengths behind him. He's better off in the weights, which obviously will give Don Rising a chance to reverse the form, and obviously probably distance will suit him as well. But yeah, I'm interested in Nürburgring here, and I think if he goes on the ground, he's got a massive chance.
Okay, let's switch to the Wolverton, 10 furlongs. We've got Enfajar at the top of the betting for Roger Varian, who goes well in this race. Jim Crowley will obviously ride him, and he shapes very, very well on his last 2 starts, including against Persica, who has obviously come out and won. That was at the end of last season, but it was a decent enough comeback behind Alaquam, who's a proper group race performer, and Ombudsman, who we're going to see on Wednesday in the Prince of Wales Stakes. Hatem, who won the Jersey Stakes a year ago for James Doyle, he's looked a little bit awkward on his last couple of starts, including behind Kudwa, but Kudwa is fancied by Aidan to run a big race in the Queen Anne and by Adam Mills, so perhaps he's going to be interesting here and has Royal Ascot form. Obviously, he's a 6-1 shot. Military Order for Charlie Appleby and William Buick is a 7-1 shot. George, who do you like in the Wolverton?
Yeah, I've got a lot of respect for Enfajar. It's worth pointing out Hartem's that Jersey form doesn't look great. Like, he beat Kikuli a short head who hasn't won since, but it's not ideal. I'll be looking at a horse at bigger prices. The main one's going to be Sons and Lovers. Had some good bits of form last season. I just said about the form being no good, but a third to Hatem, a third to Al Mackham, a third to Phantom Flight, as well as a second to Persica. This forward from his first run in a Curragh mile 2 Group 3 up into a Group 2 over the same course and distance. Having finished third, beaten 5.5 lengths by Galen in the first one, he went on to finish 4th, but this time beat Galen half a length, finished just 3 lengths by Los Angeles and White Birch. That was a £6 improvement on RPRs from first to second start and matched his career best RPR of 109. Look, he'll need to improve again here, but he improved throughout the season last year. And just checking the declarations, Ryan Moore was chopped up on this very early. And he's going to be my main play. I've got a lot of respect for a Curial Secret, but he's well found in the market thanks to very impressive win at Epsom. I might need my head examining, but if he got much bigger, I could have a look at Ambiente Friendly here.
What?
Look, his form went downhill, but he's still a English Derby, a Derby second and an Irish Derby third. It's possible the 5th and 6th run might have been a bit too much for a 3-year-old, and but the 6.25 length defeat in the Earl of Sefton. Look, I take it he was beating 6.25 lengths. He was beating 6.25 lengths by Persica, who has franked the form a little. Last time he was up to a mile 4, which I think people were saying early doors was probably a bit far for him. We were saying that, I think, going into and after the Derby. And he ran far too freely and was beaten a very long way. But once he wasn't going to win, he just sat up and pulled him up, essentially. He returns to a more suitable trip here, and he should get a strong gallop to allow him to settle. and it represents his first run at listed level since winning the Lingfield Derby trial last year. Listen, it'd have to be a big old price. It'd have to be a big old price. I wouldn't be taking, what is he now, 16s? I'm talking 20s, 25s. If he went out to a big price, I'd have a go on him place only. But Sons and Lovers is going to be my main selection for the race.
I actually think Ambiente Friendly is very interesting for this race, for all that I was taking the piss out of you first. Rob Howland's back on board. The drop back to this trip is going to suit him an awful lot better. The fast pace will suit him a lot better as well. Big field will help him settle better. James Owen was pretty positive about him when I spoke to him last. That was a few weeks ago, but he just said you can ignore the last day. Shouldn't have run him. It was too small a field. Very interesting. As is King's Gambit, who really should have won at Royal Ascot a year ago. He's got that form at Los Angeles that Ambiente Friendly has. He can step forward. I thought Sons and Lovers was very interesting, not only because of Los Angeles, but also because of what Trust Your Instinct did next time out. He absolutely bolted up at the Curragh. That looks like really good form. And the Ryan Moore booking is obviously very interesting. So they were my 3 against the field. More on TalkSport 2 on Tuesday. Tim Carroll, what about you for the Wolverton?
Look, I think there's a few you could talk about. I reckon Gallon's a big price for a horse that scalped Jan Bruegel 2 starts ago and then went off 3-1 and finished 3 lengths behind Los Angeles in his most recent outing. So I'd throw him into the mix. Ambiente Friendly, well, gee, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, a horse that's finished runner-up, around about a year ago, the City of Troy, going around in this. That's a nice bit of form, but I think he's been pretty disappointing since then. I've ended up going with Hardham. Look, I just think he goes well here. He won the Jersey last year. That's the last time he's been on Good to Firm. I think it's likely to be Good to Firm on day one. And let's not forget, he finished 5th in the Coventry the year before as well. Yeah. He ran an absolute belter there. He's a Group 2. I just think there's plenty to like. I also like the draw. I always have a look at the draw for these sort of races. And if you have a look at recent history, sort of the middle draws have done really well, that 5, 6, 7, 8, in and around there. In fact, I think the winners come from stall 5, I should say, 3 times in the last 6 years. And I think you'll find it's something like 6 of the last 10 winners have come from 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I think there's a few things there to like. He's only had the 2 runs back after a long run. Hasn't set the world on fire, if we're being honest, but I've got a feeling he'll strip a heck of a lot fitter here. He's rated 113 off the top of my head. I don't think there'd be anything here rated any higher than that, and I just think he could bounce back.
Could be a good Richard Hannon double. Rosallion in the opening race, the horse that finished behind him in the Guineas and behind him in the Irish Guineas and won at Royal Ascot last year, comes out then and wins the second last race of the day. Perhaps. Aidan O'Hara, who are you with? You're going to swing for something at a price here.
I don't know what I'm going to... I mean, give me a 24 runner draw bias Ascot handicap any day of the week. This is one of the toughest races I've seen in I don't know how long. I mean, the marks are very close. There's the whole field is between 109 and 113. It's actually an outrageous. It's a brilliant race, but anything. I mean, I always keep saying it, but good God, you would not want to be betting anything relatively short. I mean, they should all be a price. Do you know what I mean? It's a very, very tough race. The one I was interested in, but I see other people seem to be somewhat interested in now. It's probably put me off, which is King's Gambit. I thought this is likely his trip. Do you know what I mean? And at Ascot, this is likely to be his trip. His last 2 runs, they're kind of okay. But his first run this year is poor, but don't really mind that. This race will suit him, but I probably want a price. This is incredibly tough. I mean, I hopefully, if I find nothing on the day, I just end up closing my eyes and back in that checkered challenge at around 40-1, finishing the first 4. Because he'll do it 1 out of every 3 times or something like that. But actually, this race, I don't know. It's a really good race, but I can't remember how many running in this thing. 16 runners, and there's no way you're getting laughed at, maybe other than Check-In Challenge, of picking any. And I had made a good case. I was on the Gallon train as well there, but I didn't realise he actually has to give everything here weight. No matter what. In this race, when it's this tight, that's going to be difficult. Great race. I probably, if King's Gambit is around the 12 or 14 to 1, which he's currently about 12 is the biggest he is, I'm interested in him. After that, I don't know. There's a good few. Sons and Lovers, it looks like an improver, all right. But now because I think he's likely to go off shorter, I'd say. Just because, people will go, Los Angeles. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He might go off. He'll get shorter than Hatham probably in this, I'd say. But great, brilliant race. I Gambit, and I think I can't see anything. There's something though. One of these horses, maybe two of these horses, because it's Royal Ascot, and it's the second most maddest betting of the year. Probably actually even more mad than Cheltenham at times. This market, there are going to be horses here that are between 12 and 18 to 1 that are going to be 28 to 1, 33 to 1 on the day with the extra places. And any of those horses, looking through the field, I'd be interested in almost anything in and around the between 10 and 20 that's going to go to 28 to 32. A lot of them have a chance. It's a very decent race. Same with Ambiente Friendly, Maidan even. Any of these, but it's an on-the-day market thing for me, this race, because there's not a doubt in the world something's going to get backed. I'm guessing Sons and Lovers, and there's going to be value there somewhere. It's not there now. It's too early. Nothing is a massive price. Even Check and Challenge is getting backed there. He was 33, he's 28 now, so I probably wouldn't touch him at that. I'd want 40. But brilliant race, very tough.
Top on Orpheus, top on Top Speed, second to City of Troy, third to Los Angeles. Not even beaten far by Saucy. Geez, Ambiente Friendly is going to be backed for this race. That you won't get 20s, mate. You'll be looking to get the 16s that's there now. He will get backed. You just have to back James Owen to get him right. And he escapes a penalty. Oof. Peter Michael, who's going to win the Wolverton?
Well, I agree with what the lads were saying. It's a very open race. I don't have a firm fancy in this at all, if I'm being honest. Joseph O'Brien has booked Ryan Moore. That catches the eye immediately. I think he's rode for Joseph in the UK. I checked it earlier. I think in the last or all time, he's rode for him 10 times and he's had 2 winners. So he's operating at a 20% strike rate of, not a great sample there, only 10 times he's ridden for him. But obviously, Joseph thinks he's a big chance. Otherwise, he wouldn't be putting Ryan on him. So that has to be respected. Look, it's very, very open. You have to respect Enfajar. Hatim, I think, will probably stay. And if he does, he's got a big chance. Military Order also has a chance as well. As I said, I don't have a strong fancy. If I was going to pick 2 at bigger prices, Check and Challenge, I'd mentioned them earlier on with the line of form with Lead Artist and those horses in the first race, Sardinian Warrior. 8 furlongs and 10 furlongs I'm not sure. He's drawn 14, which is a bit wide, but he is a big price and he does have form to entitle him to run some sort of a race. So he might be worth a 5 for each way. And the other one at a price that might run well, but again, he might run well and finish 6th or 7th, Torito, Colin Keane for Gosden. He received 1 or 2 bad rides last year. I had in my notes, even though he won with a bad ride. I think he's better than he's shown, but he hasn't run for a year. So obviously there's been an injury there somewhere. So that's a worry. But he could outrun his odds. But look, I have no firm opinion here. But I'll put up Torito and Check and Challenge as 2 outsiders that might run into place.
2 votes for Check and Challenge.
First time cheap pieces on Torito as well, Peter Michael.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that's what I was saying. But he hasn't run for years, so that's. But he is better than he showed last year.
It's interesting to fire that bullet of the first time cheap pieces on a horse that hasn't run the year, though. It suggests you'd be fairly ready, I'd say. You wouldn't waste it on a horse that might need the run.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Okay.
But it's competitive.
Final race of the day is the Copper Horse Stakes over a mile 6. It's one of those races that was introduced during the pandemic. They kept it because it was so successful. French Master is top of the betting at 5 to 2. He has been well supported from 9 to 2 and 4 to 1 early on. He's been drawn in stall 7 again. That man, James Doyle for Watnan Racing, John and Thady Gosden. Charles for Willie Mullins, who's won the last 2 runnings of this race. Adam Mills pointed this horse out the other day. He is into 7 to 2 and Ryan Moore is booked to ride. And then you can have pretty much whatever price you want about the rest of them. George Gorman, who's going to shoot the lights out in the last?
Well, we enjoyed this one as a podcast last year, didn't we, Emmet, with Bellocchio going in, who I was fortunate to break in. I think this Charles is a very different type of horse. Like Bellocchio was already a listed winner, Group 3 placed on the flat. Charles is relatively untried on the flat in comparison. So if you're trying to follow trends, bear in mind this is a very different sort of horse. Like I can see the angle that he could be well handicapped. Like his previous platform all came at a mile 2. He won 3 in a row, including 2 conditions races before finishing second in a listed event. There's an argument that you should expect him to improve for this trip, given he's a maiden hurdle winner over 2 miles. But he was odds on to win that race, and only one of the 15 horses behind him have won since. So how well did he need to stay to beat a load of rags, essentially? Plus, obviously, he was absolutely listless in the Triumph on his only other run. He's only got one winning sibling, and it won at mile. It's a picture that sort of goes, oh, it's a jump horse, so it'll have a mile 6. Is it a jump horse? I don't think we've got enough evidence to say that yet, personally. I certainly wouldn't be taking that price about him. I mentioned this horse earlier with the sort of related contingency with Manxman. Caballo de Mar is 6 from his last 7, including that 4-length defeat of Manxman 3 starts back, who's won since. His only defeat came at Chester when he was caught wide early and only found East India Doc too good, who was running off 89, having run to a mark of 147 over hurdles. So that was probably very well in that day, and we were caught wide, only just got beat by him. I think it was a length. He's £33 higher, Caballo de Mar, than when his run of wins began, but he's showing no signs of stopping. He won last time out by a length and 3/4 over 2 miles at Haydock last time. He looks likely to stay, and his confidence is up. Like he's sort of horse I want to keep on side. And I said I might do I'm thinking I am going to back him in an each way double with Manxman earlier in the card, because that way I can justify having 3 horses running in the Ascot Stakes rather than backing him outright. But you can see the logic to it as well. The other one I would like to have running for me in this is Lavender Hill Mob. Michael Bell fought enough of him to run him in the Queen's Vase last season before he switched to James Owen. It was ultimately sort of disappointing for his juvenile hurdling campaign, although he won. Like, he was sent off a very short price for his first hurdle start and got beat. His return to the flat in Group 3 company, I think, was just a bit overly ambitious. But last time over a mile 4 at Newcastle, he managed to run out a 3 1/4 length winner. He registered a career best by £8 on RPRs. The only downside, he had the assistance of a £7 claimer that day and won't have one here. So he's essentially up 11 rather than £4. I think he could run into a place at a big price if he can recreate that effort over this longer trip. And fairly often when they do have a good run, like a good time in a jump yard, and they run over hurdles, more than Charles was, like 5-6 times, it can train a bit more stamina into him. And obviously, having been here before in the Queen's Vase won't be a disadvantage at all. At his price, I'm willing to take a chance each way on him.
Yeah, he was the one James Owen was very, very positive about before he won the other day, and he ran in the same race as Ambiente Friendly not long ago as well. Tim Carroll, who's going to shoot the lights out in the last?
Yeah, look, I'm going to be a little bit boring here, I guess. I think French Master, who's the favourite across the board at the moment, he's a progressive type. He's won 3 from 5. I thought it was a nice performance at Goodwood last time out when he won. I know he didn't win by a margin, but I think he won a tad cosy. He kind of switched on and off a little bit in that as well. I note they've put the blinkers on here, so hopefully that will work the oracle and won't have the opposite effect. He'd be my idea of the winner, but at the moment I think you're talking around about 5-2 or thereabouts. There is one here I think is a little bit interesting at a big price. Now, he's certainly going to have to run a lot better than what we saw last time, and he's going to have to run a career best. But Endless Victory from the Charlie Appleby yard, he's been running around. When I say he's been running around, we haven't seen him for a few months because he had a couple of starts at Meydan earlier in the year. And the first of those he ran perfectly well in defeat when he finished third as an 11-10 favourite. But then he went around in a valuable handicap. And, well, yeah, I think the run was too bad to be true. When we saw him at the end of last year, or when I say last year, but it was his last run in August, he won a handicap. It wasn't an overly strong handicap, but he won a handicap at York. He hasn't had that many runs. He's only had the 6 in total. He's got a nice pedigree as well. He's by Teofilo, and it just wouldn't surprise me if he's got a fair bit more to offer than what we've seen so far. So I'd throw him in as my sort of roughie, if you like, in the field. But I think this French master from the John and Thady Gosden yard's probably going to take a bit of beating here.
Okay, that's Tim's thoughts. Aidan?
It just shows the usefulness of looking at these races a bit early. But I thought I came across one this morning. First of all, I probably going to be interested in HMS President each way anyway, just because his record on the flat, even though his last 2 runs aren't great, his record after a break, he's had good run in Ascot. He's a massive price. He's first reserve. I think he's likely to go in. But, I mean, the basic thing is you kind of have to just back these Alan King horses, if ever, to get to a massive price in any handicap on the flat. Now, I've no stats to back that up. Just remember getting them in a number of times and them running well a number of times. So I kind of like that. But my main pick in this, which is like a lot, is the way I look at racing and betting. I've horse I've never heard of. But I do like this Barnes, though. This, what's that trainer? Is it Natalie Lupini, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, she's brilliant, yeah.
Like, first of all, she doesn't waste entries or boat trips for a start anyway. Oisin Murphy is on this thing, which definitely
catches it.
Definitely catches the eye. I saw the best staying handicap in Ireland is that Patingo thing in September in Leopardstown. And he's just behind Nuremberg. I mean, it's proper form. This is proper form. That race is probably better than this race, or it's very same, and at least the same, right? And like the Fighter won it, but like Fighter was it was off a ridiculously low mark, and nothing was beating that anyway. So we just ruled him out, right? He didn't have an ideal run. There may not be much between the likes of him and Nuremberg, maybe, but he was 10-1 in that race. I'm totally unsure as to how he's 25-1 here. I don't get it at all. With Oisin Murphy booked from that yard, he's an incredibly consistent horse, but probably going the right way, I'd say. And this is his trip. I think he stays. I'm having difficulty finding a negative about it, especially at the price. I think that price is quite. I mean, it's not a mad one. It's not 50-1 or anything like that, but just pure on form, jockey booking, trainer, everything. This is surely going off 14-1, 12-1, something like that. There's unexposed horses in the race, but it does bring another one into it called Aeronautic, who he beat before, as well, probably off at least as good a mark, but. I just like that horse. He's after running really well in a couple of handicaps. He was third in a listed race. I think he could be improving. That listed race is the one that was, the Vinnie Rowe.
Yeah.
Yes, I think even though he's off, 98? I think he's earned that. And I kind of can't see him not being heavily involved in the finish.
Well, Kyprios wouldn't have been fully fired up for that, but...
No, but I'm guessing, as I said, that trainer doesn't waste, any entries or anything like that. So it's had a run in February, a lot around Dundalk, 10 furlongs, ran okay, right? Ran reasonably well. And then it's had another run, and then, rocks up here. The other run was on soft ground behind Kyprios as well. Rocks up here after a break. And Oisin Murphy's booked. And I don't know how she even sent a horse to Ascot before. I'm not sure.
I was just trying to look that up, actually.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be involved. And if you have a horse that's definitely going to be involved and it's 25-1, there's 5 places, you have to back it.
Okay. Peter Michael, 25-1, by the way, currently available about Oisin Murphy's mount there.
Yeah, well, I think that's a valid point. That caught my eye anyway, whether or not the horse can go on and win, but I see definitely where Aidan's coming from, and definitely would expect to outrun the odds anyway, wherever he finishes. Look, I don't have a strong fancy in this again. I agree with Tim, the favourite's probably going to be hard to beat, but there's probably not much use left in that price. But, if the blinkers don't have a negative effect, which I doubt they will coming from that stable, he's going to be banged there, and he's the one to beat. I don't know anything about the Mullins horse. I mean, he's only ran once for him over on the flat. Actually, he's never run on the flat for me.
No.
Sorry, boat runs over hurdles. Yeah, so I don't know, but he's booked Ryan Moore, so he means business. And I don't know how many horses in this race are well handicapped. That's the angle I'm struggling. The French Master could still have more to offer, so he could still have a few pounds in hand. This Mullins horse could have, I don't know anything about him, so it's hard to try and analyse him, but the fact that it's Willie Mullins and he's booked Ryan Moore has to give him a massive chance. Cabello Del More's, as George, I think George was touching upon that horse, hasn't done anything wrong this year really, and has solid form in the context of this race behind Easton Judoc and beating Manxman in the all-weather. So he must have a chance. Whether or not he has enough left ahead of the handicapper because he's gone up a lot to win this, I don't know. But look, to be honest, it's probably the one to beat, but I don't know what to make of the Mullins horse. But so I'll go with the favourite, French Master.
He is unexposed, and he has won the last 2 runnings of this race, but one of them was Vauban, and the other one, as George rightly said, his horse, George was extremely confident about in Bellaccio. He's a different type to them.
Well, I think if proper money comes to this horse, the Mullins horse, I think he'll win.
Would you be concerned about the ground for him, given that it's likely to be at least good, maybe good to firm?
Possibly.
Pedigree's fine, but we just haven't seen him on it.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's where Willie comes into it. If he runs him, I'd imagine he wouldn't run him if he thought, there was a danger, or if he thought he wouldn't act on it. But I don't know, Tim. I just don't know. That's the truth. How would we know?
Yeah, the Down was second in a Group 3 on proper good ground.
Oh, yeah, on Pedigree's by Churchill, isn't he? If I remember correctly, in front of me. I get that, but we haven't seen him on this ground. I mean, who knows? He might enjoy it, but I couldn't back him at the current quote. But I suppose if the money comes, I mean, Willie Mullins, as we know, he's a smart cookie. If the money comes, they obviously think he's absolutely fine on it.
Well, that's what I meant was as well. I don't think there's anything here that has much in hand with the handicapper. So if the money comes for that horse, I think then obviously, and if he's well in coming from that yard, he'll probably win. Yeah,
I respect George Scott an awful lot, particularly at Royal Ascot, and obviously he trained the winner of the Hardwick last year. But that was the thing that worried me about Cabrera de Mar. Does he have anything in hand off that 97?
He's gone up about £33, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Since that run. I mean, it's been a wonderful run, but you kind of think eventually, they're going to get hold of him.
Okay.
I've got an answer for Aidan. Natalia Lupini has had one previous runner at Royal Ascot. Dunham in the 2023 Royal Hunt Cup finished 24th.
Okay. Okay.
But that horse won a lot of races that season, if I remember rightly.
Dunham, is it? Yeah,
Dunham,
that one.
And
he was 10th for 14 in his group. So not great, but not as bad as it might sound.
And it also proves that she doesn't come over unless she thinks the horse has a chance for all that one didn't go. She doesn't waste those entries. Yeah. Okay, best bets.
The horse was sent off 17-2.
Yeah,
there we go. Okay,
sent favourites.
Right, well, keep this Oisin Murphy mount in mind, because that horse is going to be well backed. You would imagine. Barnzo, number 8, 25-1 is available for day 1 of Royal Ascot. Best bets, best each way bets for the day. George Gorman, who are you siding with?
I think the nap is going to be, Field of Gold's very boring, isn't it? But I think he just... next best, probably regional, and my each way one be Liari.
Okay. Tim Carroll.
This is one for the each way players, I suppose. Mind you, even though I got 33-1, I backed him on the nose. So if he runs second or third, it'll be no good for mine. But for people watching the podcast, I think Lake Forest is going to run a heck of a race in the Queen Anne. So for the each way players out there, Lake Forest double figures would be my nap.
Aidan O'Hara.
I think I'll go with my nap being... It would be tight between Barnzo and... I'm trying to remember the name of the horse in the Dawn Rising. Both kind of similar. But I'll just say Barnzo just because if I was to talk about it, I'd probably seem a tad more excited about the price of Barnzo. So we'll go with that. I think he's a winning chance. They're all very good races. And each way... I think Dawn Rising is now too. I was one of those sprinters. I like them both, but for having a win chance, I probably prefer Kerdas being less exposed each way.
Damn, 50-1 with the Christophe Soumillon on board. Peter Michael.
Yeah, look, nap wise, I think he'll win, but the value is probably gone. Well, it wasn't really there. Field of Gold, as I said, I think he'll win, but he's not great value. But if you're looking for a horse, your best chance of backing a winner would be him. Nürburgring, I'd put him up as the next best. The ground, I'm a bit worried about for him, but he'll relish that trip. I think he's well enough handicapped, and I think he'll run a big race if he handles the ground. Each way value, Docklands, I think he won't be far away, and he's 25-1.
Okay, I'm going to play an each way multiple on today. Of course I am. It's day one of Royal Ascot. Why wouldn't I? It'll be involving Knight Rider. I'm very confident about it the more I think about it. I think he's just going to burst out, make all, and win. I really like Henri Matisse. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe Field of Gold is just in another league. I haven't seen it yet. I don't think so. I think Henri Matisse will go very, very close. Reaching High, I really like. And the more I think about that Coventry, the more I like Warsaw for Wayne Lordan. That was a very, very eye-catching performance on debut, but I can't decide between him or Gestad, so I'll say that Patent, Reaching High, Knight Rider, Henri Matisse. Let's throw in Sardinian Warrior, why not? Make it lucky 15. Okay, thank you so much to the team. I've very much enjoyed their company. We're going to talk to quite a few of them throughout the week as well. But Tim Carroll, enjoy your Ascot. Are you on Sky Sports during the week?
No, I don't think I'm in at Sky during the week, if I remember correctly. And I've taken the Saturday off so I can head down there to watch the Tono Rev take out a big sprint.
Is Satano Rev going to do Stormboy?
Yeah, I think so. Stormboy, I know Aidan made a few excuses for him for his first up run here, and I think there's probably some valid reasons why he's run a bit poorly, but I thought it was pretty shocking. And to be fair, he wasn't in great form when he left Australia either. So Toto Rev, believe you me, that form behind K-ing right in, it's good form.
And you are, of course, the Hong Kong expert for At The Races and Sky Sports Racing. And every time I'm on X, you've banged in another winner there at Hong Kong. So nobody would know that form better than Tim Carroll. And he's an Australian, so he's heavily incentivized to be telling you how great Stormboy is. The fact that he's playing it down, that has me a little bit worried. All right, from Tim Carroll, George Gorman, Aidan O'Hara, and Peter Michael. Peter, if people have not taken advantage of your excellent service yet, how can they do it now?
Oh, yeah, just log on to X, and my handle is there on the screen, and they can send me a direct message. And if they want to get into the service, I'll give them all the information needed. We're in good form, so maybe now's a good time. Absolutely.
Continue to bang in the winners at Peter Michael Racing on X for those of you who are listening. Aidan O'Hara, where are we going to see your content soon?
Yeah, more or less. I'm not sure what I'm doing. I might be doing something else towards the end of the week. All right. I mean, I'll have, I'd be waiting closer to the time. Those betting markets, same as Cheltenham, 11 o'clock, between 11 and 1, day of race. There's going to be madness. And I'm liable to, I'm price only, but I'm liable to completely change my mind with something going to mad price, which will happen. You're guaranteed. Every race, something will change. The markets are so strong. It nearly wanted to only bet at Cheltenham and Royal Ascot and just leave the rest of the year. Because every market is, there's value to be had. Do you know what I mean? It's like different.
Well, if you thought he'd stopped with his 125-1 winner, then he had a 50-1 winner, 28-1 winner. Age of Kings was 66-1, if I remember correctly. It was insane. Yeah, St. Lawrence, didn't you have St. Lawrence as well?
I did, yeah, but I've used up all my. I had nothing last year.
It's coming back.
I did give back about 10% of it last year.
It's coming back, Aidan. It's coming back.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. If you're dependent on a 40-1 shot, it's not as. I think it works. It works fine in the big festivals in general. But God, you need every horse trying. They need to be big races. It's pointless in anything other than Group 1s, huge handicaps. Do you know what I mean? Festivals.
Yeah.
We'll get something up.
You'll get it this week. George, you're back with us very, very soon, and you're going to be at Royal Ascot.
Yes, yeah. I think what I'm going to do, I did toy with the idea of doing a Royal Ascot cheat sheet, but between the... I've done it. I've done it because I write it for myself, but... rather than selling it, because I'm working at Ascot Tuesday, Friday, I'm there for the day out Thursday, I'm recording podcasts with you Sunday, Monday, Wednesday. So I think I'm just going to, each day, I'm just going to post my Twitter. I'm just going to do each day at a time. So I've literally just saved the Tuesday one there now that we finished here, and I'll post sometime in the morning Tuesday.
Oh, check out George Gorman's X. Those cheat sheets are absolute gold. So make sure you're getting that, particularly when it's available at a 5-finger discount. That's unbelievable. All right, from George Gorman, Tim Carroll, Aidan O'Hara, Peter Michael, and me, Emmet Kennedy, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Best of luck for day one of Royal Ascot. More coverage coming your way very, very soon on the Final Furlong Podcast. Remember to smash the like button. Likes, shares, and subscribes are much appreciated. We'll talk to you soon. Look after yourself and each other. God bless.
In horse racing, every furlong matters and every episode counts. So stay ahead of the field by hitting subscribe to the Final Furlong Podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms. It's free and it gets you one step closer to the winner's enclosure. Subscribe to the Final Furlong Podcast and join us on the gravy train.